Okay. Yeah, I think here, some of you, or most of you, I think, attended last week's meeting. And I was actually working this week on trying to publish the paper on our initiatives. And one of the things I've realized is we have about a dozen initiatives in the club that are all aimed at mobilizing the bulk of the world, the entire world population eventually, to become actively engaged in addressing some of the world's major problems. But I realized that over these last few years, because some of those initiatives were well on their way before COVID, and then COVID brought everything to a stop. And uh, I realized that it really helps to be able to categorize these initiatives so that we can see what the real main goal um, of the initiative. Why do we have that initiative? What is it? Is it intended to address a specific problem, like climate change or COVID or pardon me, climate change or AI? Or is it more on how do we maximize engagement and so forth? Okay, I see here. Welcome, Ingrid. Glad you could join us today. And but it's time. Let me get this show on the road, and then we'll do everything else on the record. Ding! I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. Our topic, and I declare this meeting on 9 May 2026 to be open. Our meeting for today is a follow-on to last week's meeting, which I received quite a number of comments afterwards that the meeting seemed to have hit a chord. Um, what it was, there was a senator in the United States here that convened a number of specialists on AI from really the two main areas of the world that are driving the entire AI push, and that's the United States and China. And uh, the discussion really was um, uh, how dangerous is AI to human civilization, or potentially. And the thing that I found made it perhaps most interesting was to see the alignment between the North American and the Chinese experts in terms of what was going on and what potential danger it meant. Now, the parties were one of the top U.S. experts from MIT. The one of the top experts from China is heading up the United Nations AI efforts, and in a lot of ways, the discussion was moving towards the area of regulation of what are we going to do about it. So our club is when we look, our club, like almost all clubs, we seek to be the greatest service that we can be to our community. However, with members around the world, our community is the whole world. And then when it comes down to service, we ask ourselves, well, what is the greatest service? There's two main thrusts with regards to service. One is let's just do something good. And the other one is let's achieve good results. Prior to World War II, Rotary was made up primarily of the movers and shakers because the power, even in the United States, most of the power was at the community level. Banks, newspapers, most businesses were locally owned. And for most people, everything that influenced their lives took place at the community level. And these people were, if you would, the power elite of those communities. They were basically above politics. They would get together, talk about what are the major problems in their community, and they would make decisions on what was going to be done about them. Then they would very often pass those on to the mayors and the city councils and say, now do this. This is what we're going to do. But they would be the ones really organizing what was going to be done. So they were the real power behind the communities. In World War II, there was a great dispersion of people moving around, and almost all the movers and shakers either went into the military war effort or went into the support aspects. And that became everything. How do we make all of the materials that we need as efficiently, as quickly as possible? And mass production became the key. When the war ended, now you had all of these people who were used to working at a much larger level than the local community. And the need because of the dispersion. One out of every five, by the way, one out of every five Americans moved across the state line during the 1940s. So the idea of community was truly disrupted. Then in the 1950s came along the interstate highway system that enabled mobility and transportation, made it very easy. And then the communication with TV and coming right after that, we were starting to see the mergers of all local entities becoming part of larger regional and national chains, if you would. And what happened in Rotary is that the community was no longer a big enough stage for most of the movers and shaker types that made up Rotary up until that point. And then education came into it, and community really lost its power in the United States. To the point today that you've got when it's community elections in a lot of cities, fewer than 15% of the population even bothers to vote in community elections. And in a great many communities, I would venture to say that the majority of the population doesn't even know who the mayor is in their own community. So Rotary started to shift because it didn't have those decision makers with the absolute power anymore. It started to become an organization of well-intended uh, helpers, people that wanted to just do some good in their community. And it became about service, doing service rather than solving problems. So the meetings became less and less about the decision making of what is going to be done in the community, less strategic discussion, and more combination of fellowship and a combination of planning actions that could help out in some way in their community. So at any rate, for our club, then when we sort of sat down and said, well, we got to look at the world, and we asked ourselves, what would be the biggest service that we can do? Well, you're not going to go and say, let's create the soup kitchen of the world and we're going to feed everybody. We can't go out and say we're going to provide everybody in the world with food. So what we did is we concluded that the greatest benefit, the greatest service that we could be to our community is to help protect our community from severe and potentially existential consequences of the major problems facing the world. And so that became our primary mission. And when it came time to look at initiatives, we said, okay, we have to base our initiatives on needs. what we have to set our goals based on what's needed and not what we think we can do. Uh, Disregard whether we know how to do it or even believe it's achievable. Uh, we believe that when we seek to find solutions to problems where we don't know what the solution is, that's when we grow the most. So anyway, that's what we're about. And a few weeks ago, we were discussing, well, what would be the thing that we could do that would be the greatest benefit to the world? And looking at the discussions coming out of the United Nations of the last 8 years, 7, 8 years, it's been really focused on this idea of multilateralism, focused on the idea that more and more people in more and more countries around the world are turning their backs on international cooperation and taking a us first attitude, if you would. Uh, in addition, when we look at the major problems around the world and we ask ourselves, well, why is it that we're not succeeding? It's not because of effort. We see millions, literally millions of projects being done around the world every year. Rotary itself, just alone, does about 1 million projects every 5 years from the various Rotary clubs. So we have all this effort going into it. Then we have to ask, well, why aren't we achieving the needed results? And when we went in and did research, the first thing we found is we really couldn't find any initiatives that were aimed at solving the world problems. Almost all the initiatives were aimed at the symptoms of the problems, helping the victims of the consequences of the problems. So that seemed to be the first thing that we weren't we you can't hit what you don't aim for, and we're not really aiming to solve the problems. The second problem that we came across was um, how do I put this? The fact that almost all projects are local or regional in nature. And as a result, if I take just Rotary, Rotary very often comes out and says we need to do something about water and sanitation, or we need to do something about this or about that. And it's almost like, okay, every Rotary club, you go out there and figure out the answer. So we're asking all of our Rotary clubs to basically go out and redundantly try to reinvent the wheel. We do recognize that uh, the needs are very often different from one community to the next, but there's only a certain number of these variations. So going and saying every club, whether it's a Rotary Club, a Lions Club, or Kiwanis or whatever, to figure out what needs to be done and how to do it, we're very often asking people who have less than the top expertise in the world to figure out how to solve problems and who have limited means. So we're not leveraging what has come to be seen as the biggest organizational um, benefit, or if you would, or feature of efficient organizations, economies of scale. And we're not able to take advantage of opportunity costs. So, we're supposed to be the world's largest association of business and civic leaders in the world, yet we don't apply all of the known uh, practices that have shown to be most successful in business. So anyway, um, when we go now and say, okay, we're looking to solve the problems. And as I said, the number one issue that we saw was lack of engagement. Now, engagement is more than participating in a protest rally. Engagement is doing things. And the number one thing that we feel needs doing is not rolling up the sleeves and getting a shovel, but more thinking about what is needed and how best to do it. So, but at any rate, so our biggest mission, if you would, or biggest goal is to figure out how do we engage a large share of the world population in actually doing effective things to improve the world situation. Just close that a little bit. And so that is was since 2019, I would say, as the UN was getting ready for the 75th anniversary. That has been a major focus. Maybe 2018 it was. The Another thing, though, that we're having to pay attention to is, okay, yeah, we want to get all this engagement, but at the same time, what is the biggest danger right now facing the world? Up until 2023, I guess it was, um, most people would say climate change. Climate change poses an existential threat to humanity. And we've only got a certain number of years before we pass some tipping points where it will be very difficult to reverse the trajectory that could become disastrous for humanity. But in 2023, ChatGPT came out and the AI race began. And as this has progressed, we're seeing more and more that both in terms of how much time that we have to figure that all out because of the speed at which that is evolving, that this is perhaps the greatest urgency to humanity to figure out what needs to be done and how to do it regarding AI. And as I pointed out in the invitation, there's when you say AI, different people are talking about different aspects. There's a group, especially that group that was on the panel last week, that is talking about AI escaping control of humans and potentially turning against humans. And they brought out the speakers between a 20 and 50% chance that AI will literally wipe out the human race. And they spent a lot of time explaining why they held those positions. The second major thing that is out there is the fear that bad actors are going to use AI either to harm some individuals, but also potentially to harm the world, to damage the world. Weaponizing AI, building AI that will autonomously kill people or wipe out entire uh, civilizations. So this is a real danger, and the race is on. The major powers of the world are all working as fast as they can to develop uh, super autonomous weapons. And because they're afraid the other side will get to them first, and then it'll be all over. The third danger from AI is more simple, and that is that AI just becomes more productive than humans and basically just obsoletes humans from the productivity equation. In other words, the replacement of humans in jobs. And to what degree that might happen depends a lot on who you talk to. But more and more, we're seeing a consensus evolving, even among the skeptics of a year or two ago, more and more a consensus that AI could replace all humans, every human in every role, the managers, the top bosses, the you name it. There's nothing that AI can't do. And if we look here now at the robotic side, and see the advances of just the last 1 year. Um, Up until 2 years ago, the general consensus was that robots were going to lag AI by maybe 5 to 10 years. I think now the feeling is no, they're sort of coming into their role roughly at about the same time. I noticed just recently a video showing that police in some Chinese cities, they're now accompanied by humanoid robots when they're patrolling the streets. And the one of the largest train stations in the world was opened just about a month ago. And actually, it was built in an extremely short time. I think it's something like 150 football fields, this train station. And humanoid robots played a significant role in building it. We know the BMW plant just about an hour's drive south of me here, and I'm in North Carolina right now. That humanoid robots have been working there alongside the humans for at least a year now. So this is taking place. The As far as the AI side goes, I don't remember who it was. One of the really big companies that I think has over 100,000 employees announced they were laying off 14% of their entire workforce, primarily because AI is taking over a lot of the tasks. I think Meta announced that they're laying off something like 7% of their entire workforce. And we can expect this is going to continue. We see autonomous vehicles spreading here. It's, I think, in twice as many cities now in the US as it was just a year ago for the robo-taxis. We see the number of companies getting into the robo-taxi business increase. If we go to China, the number of autonomous taxis in a number of major cities is exploding. So just figure out how many people are employed as drivers around the world. So anyway, the disruption could be dramatic. And what happens if a significant share, even if it's only 25% of the population, the working population should lose their jobs, especially those people in professional fields who are higher earners. What's the impact on Social Security payments? What's the impact on the taxes? What's the impact on the spending that those people would normally do for everything they buy? And so the ripple effect throughout society. And depending on, are we going to be prepared to deal with that? Because if we look at the Great Depression and some recessions in the past, yeah, there was always the feeling, okay, this is temporary. Yeah, we're going to get over this and it's going to go back to normal. But right now, the projections are if we say looking out 10 years or 5 years or 20 years or whatever it is, that, okay, we might have X unemployment at that time. But the feeling is it's only going to get worse from there. It's only going to be more and more AI and robots that will continue to take more and more jobs after that. So it's not like we're looking at something that's temporary and it's going to be replaced. So uh, if we're not prepared, if society is not prepared for that, what would the natural evolution be? Is the natural evolution going to be the wealth will just continue to concentrate in a couple of percent of the population, and the rest are just going to be left to their own devices with no significant source of income? How do they pay their mortgages? Is the financial system going to collapse? Uh, so typically governments have been in the business, they react. When the pain in society gets bad enough, they react. But given the speed at which all this is happening, is there going to be any room if the reaction is too late? Uh, are there any options to implement solutions that will provide all of society a meaningful future? Or could it devolve into a case that we've got 95% of angry and frustrated masses who are being given some kind of universal basic minimal income and just surviving, while 2 or 3% are living like kings? Or does that 2 to 3% become so afraid of the 95% increasingly angry masses that they decided that that's a danger to them and they take a preemptive strike to eliminate the masses? At any rate, here the bottom line is it could result in a bad result, and in our club, we're dedicated to trying to avoid bad results. So we've got to think about that. We've got to address it. We got to get more people engaged in thinking about it, especially trying to get bodies like the United Nations or national governments to be thinking about this could happen. And finally, and to that, because the key thing I was looking at today as a continuation of last week's discussion, instead of looking at it and saying, what's the likelihood that this will happen? This bad thing will happen. How likely is that? Where a lot of people can say, you know what, that's only a small percentage likelihood. The odds are we're not going to get that bad situation. So let's just continue doing our thing. But if our goal is to make sure the bad thing doesn't happen, we really need to look at it from saying, how sure are we that the bad thing is not going to happen? And I compare this to right now, if we see people like Jeffrey Hinton saying, there's a 20% chance that AI will wipe out the human race. And a lot of people that I mentioned that to say, oh, yeah, well, it's 80%, it's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. Well, if you take a revolver and take out all the bullets and just put one bullet in and spin the chamber, if it's a six-shooter, that's only about a 16% chance. Would you take that gun and point it to your head and pull the trigger? No, wait. Would you put that gun to the head of your child or grandchild and pull the trigger? It's only a 16% chance. But how many people are willing to do that? In other words, some of the problems that we're looking at, the consequences are so severe that even if it's only a small chance, that's too big a chance that we risk that because it could be existential to us. The third major focus of our club that goes back historically is education. I switched from industry into education in the mid 1980s and built a course sequence at Purdue University. And the education bug bit me, and then I got into traveling and studying education in K through 12, both in the United States and in several countries elsewhere. And I got to the point that in 2019, I think it was, I became vice chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the United Nations. So I have had a very strong interest in education, and we attracted early on in the club a number of people that were very focused on education. And by education, we mean how do we reduce or eliminate the gaps, the education gaps between nations, but also between communities within nations. Because we see in the United States, the bottom 10% of schools typically have 90% of children who are not at grade level. And at the top 10% of schools, it's only about 10% of students that are not at grade level. So that's a big gap to close within a country. And if we look here pretty much around the world, we see the same thing in a lot of developing countries between the cities and the rural areas. But in a lot of developing countries, the entire country compared to, let's say, some of the elite. So those are the three major focuses that we've been looking at. Oh, and education, another thing as we became aware.
Bill,
Yeah,
I'm sorry if I interrupt. We are now 38 minutes into the
yeah.
meeting, and I still don't know what exactly we are going to do today.
Oh, okay. The key thing that we were talking about is to point out the areas of focus of the club, but then to focus, narrow back down on the artificial intelligence aspect of talking about how real how really severe is the risk. If our focus is to avoid the worst consequences, how how big is the risk of
Yeah.
those big
O-
consequences?
Okay, Bill, you answered that already. It's too big. End of discussion to me. If that what
No,
the
no,
rest
no,
of
no.
this discussion is,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm going to do something else with my time. You have
Uh-huh.
answered it for me. I just can't see how that helps additionally. You have just made exactly the point.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
100% behind it.
Yeah.
Jeff Hinton is behind it, no
Yeah.
question about it. So, sorry, I don't have the time to go into that.
Okay.
If others want to do it, it's okay.
The question I wanted to get to today is the question when we talk about action. Okay, when we talk about action, action to our club is different from the action of a lot of Rotary clubs where they say, okay, hey, we need some volunteers to go over here and volunteers to go over there. Our action is to be a think tank, a combination of a think tank and an influencer, so that we spend time to think what are the exact risks? How do we mitigate those risks or prevent those risks? And how do we implement the ideas that we have on how to mitigate those risks?
Is
That's
that is that focused on AI now?
no, for today, because I wanted to wrap up what we started last week, which was talking about the likelihood that something might happen. But for us, the more important thing is our confidence, our assurance that it won't happen. How do we get to the point that we no longer have to be thinking, oh, there's a 20% chance that this bad thing might happen? What can we do to eliminate or reduce that chance that that bad thing can happen? And when I say we, our club we're not going to be the ones that do it. We can influence the people that have the power and the means to do it. And that includes, in some cases, mobilizing the masses, but in many cases, it's mobilizing the decision makers.
Well, that brings me back to exactly the same obstacles, root causes
Yeah.
we've talked about before. So to me, this is to me going around in circles without making progress.
Mhm.
If we cannot get the decision makers on board, whether it's AI, climate, or whatever, we don't get through the system. We have endless discussions. We make no progress.
Correct.
So,
And that's the point. You just made the key point. The key point is how do we get, you say if we can't get them on board, we can't make the progress. So our mission is how do we get them on board? Do we go and hold a bayonet to their throat? Do we go and give them good
yes.
arguments? Our goal is we have to achieve a mission and we have to try to find the way to do that. We don't necessarily know right
Well,
now.
Bill, once more, we've just gone through this with another initiative, exactly the same structure behind it.
Mhm.
It took just 7 2-hour meetings to get to the root causes, the specific goals, and actually we have just this week gone through a first solution framework where all the things are in there. And the trick was not to continue this discussions not to try to somehow find a way to get through the system bottom up, but by turning it around and creating and putting the demand for the solution on the top by simply asking, how can we create demand for what we can do? And
Mhm.
that was done. It's done now. Yeah, pretty much done. Large part of the framework is all we need to get together.
Yeah.
So if you're going into something like this, something radical different from what is done today, away from endless discussions, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I cannot afford any longer so many discussions that just repeat, and not just here, but everywhere,
Yeah.
that repeat the same that has been said so many times. And I see Marcus is hand up.
Yeah. Let's listen to Mark, hear what Mark has to say. Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just two things. One, I wanted to compliment what Eugen, I think, if I got the name right, what he's just said. I appreciate that in the beginning, probably over the past year or so, we've really had to have discussions around trying to frame and contextualize what the issue is. How what intervention do we want to take and what intervention is required. Now, I think we need to try out what Eugen is saying
Mhm.
and just take a bold step and move towards what we think could be a solution. Uh, and we may get to a point and we say, okay, no, let's go back. Let's have some more brainstorming. Let's have some more context. But it will really get us towards that point of action. I can say, for instance, in my club, I already announced what we are doing, as part of telling people what I'm going to be doing when I hand over the presidency on 30th of June. And there's excitement. There is an appreciation when I explain to people that Rotary should not be doing business as usual. And Rotary used to dream big, setting up the United. We started well, which is we gave ourselves the time to pull together all sorts of ideas and see that we have a meeting of minds. I get the sense that in this small group we have a meeting of minds, but maybe if we could give Eugen the opportunity, maybe a meeting or two, drive us towards this thing because you say you've done something that has
Mhm.
worked. The beautiful thing is, I know Bill has mentioned the initiative that they've done with the children. The girl raising uh, millions of dollars and the rest. So somehow we shall now be brainstorming towards an outcome, and I really want to think we should target that by October. We've got something going because Bill, you mentioned that around September you will be speaking to the UN General Assembly. So we really need to say that, friends, we have about 3 months. And the second contribution I wanted to make is to say we may need to moderate because I was listening to the All In podcast, the latest version of the All In podcast, and they were making the case that much as Anthropic really held on to mythos and announced it, OpenAI also had a similar model that has cyber capabilities. And they self-regulated and they didn't even bother announcing, because they knew that it was in the best interests of all the wider society that this was regulated, delayed, and then the government systems and the banks and the rest could have their cyber strengthened. So that listening to that all in podcast got me thinking that there are people in the right space who are also they have a business incentive to progress AI fast, but they're beginning to realize that they have a responsibility, and we have these people who we can call on. But let's first get our thing going, and I am sure we're going to find along the way that there's a lot of people, even among the frontier labs and the rest, who will want to then piggyback on and say, let's scale what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. I think last week we heard here one of the panelists was the one that, well, two of them, each organized that the that thousands of the industry leaders in the AI field signed letters saying we need to slow down or we need to regulate things. We see right now that that's not happening. What we sort of set so far as looking at the main agenda regarding AI was to say we've got to get the UN, we've got to get the major world leaders to develop the contingency plan to develop a plan. This idea of competition, geopolitical competition in AI is leading to AI warfare. That is one of the three main danger points. How we need to set our goal then, how do we stop that? That's one of the top goals. How do we stop the geopolitical competition for dominance in AI? Another one is for the eventuality that AI does totally disrupt the world economy, where's the contingency plan? If there's no contingency plan and there's not going to be any timing to do it, so we have got to undertake the mission to cause the world to create a contingency plan for what to do about that. So those are the kinds of goals that we've been discussing in smaller groups. And where I wanted to go with this group here is to say, are are not those the major things that have to be accomplished? We tried for Doha, for the Second World Summit, uh, for um, uh, for global development. We tried to get them to make the top priority to begin a process to come up with a contingency plan for the world in the case that AI achieves that intelligence dominance. So that was the kinds of things that we're talking about on trying to come up with the actions that we start a process of us thinking about how do we cause the world to do those things I was just mentioning. Eugen.
Yeah, to me, the AI consequence are just secondary, maybe third level things. Why? Because if you don't get into the right positions, if you don't get the right people in the right positions, yes, the current decision makers, experts, are trapped into the same thinking that created the situation. So even if we do, and that's a real world experience, we have now greatest difficulties of making people in organizations understand how a solution to a complex problem looks like. That was part of the culture that people understood in the 1990s is
Mhm.
not understood anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah? Because of this exact linear thinking, while the world is complex, we need solution people able to solve complex problems, which
Right,
all the problems are. Yeah, but the people are not in those positions.
right.
The people have been removed.
Mhm.
So one of the tricks, and that actually wrote out of the other initiative I just spoke about, is let's create demand for the talents and solutions that organizations and society suffer from.
Mhm.
So when that demand comes in through the back door, it's pretty easy to ask to bring additional things in, like does the decision improve or worsen the health of the organization, of the environment, of the people? And via this path, um, building up the pressure to get through the system. And when that starts rolling, then we can talk about how to prevent the bad things from AI, from climate, or whatever. In the other fields, they're often available. In
Mhm.
AI, it's really tricky. There are so many, so there's so much pressure right now going on that those in the key positions, the inventors, they are driven this bad direction right now. They need to deliver. They need to ensure there's sufficient income that what they promised will happen, and that pushes them one path.
But
Doesn't it?
again, what you're saying right now, you're exactly doing what we are trying to get more people engaged doing. You are thinking through what are the things that are hindering
Exactly.
the behavior that we need? What are the things that are hindering that? And then thinking about what can we do to change those behaviors? For example, when we looked here at the SDGs, and we see in a lot of cases where the countries all signed on, yes, we're going to achieve these SDGs, but then there's no action that follows it. Or we see a lot of corruption in
Yeah,
some places.
okay. Then to make the discussion short today, well, we can start next time with a real workshop
Mhm.
online to answer that question or to get to the bottom of the obstacles that prevent people to make the decisions. And we have already identified a number of them with the other team. But do this specifically for this task. The only thing we need one specific question at the top, like how can we create demand for, and I'm not exactly clear what it could be, but would be probably be something along the line, how can we get the problem solve, or how can we create demand for problem solvers in the
Mhm.
right in the right decision-making places. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And then we can brainstorm, and as long as we focus only on the most, yeah, just learned most damaging isn't the right English expression, but to me it expresses what creates the highest damage. That's where the intervention needs to take
Yeah.
place. Yeah. And then what is the solvable root, or what are the few solvable root causes hiding behind it? And all on this kind of thing, as I said, took just 7 sessions and a little bit of background
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
to get to a solution framework.
Yeah, no, that is exactly the path we were working on here when COVID disrupted us, and that is visible through the initiatives that we had defined, because we looked at things like,
Yeah.
do we go and try to replace the leaders with the kind
Well,
of people you're talking
well,
about, or do we get the leaders that we change their personal thinking to make them compliant with the behavior we think they should have. In other words, do we fix the current leaders or do we replace them? And we see that the efforts to replace them have almost always failed. But there are examples where leaders have changed their behaviors and gone from being
yeah,
bad leaders into good leaders. So we have a combination, and we don't know which one. We think we have to do both here to be able to figure out a way, because for many, many cases that we've seen, the masses can want something and go in one direction, and a handful of people at the levers of power
yes,
can
yes.
reverse that.
Bill, what we can do is stop the discussion around it. Every participant
Mhm.
brings in what this person sees as the obstacles of the highest impact. I'm sorry, I call it this the most damaging root causes, and they get brought in. We don't discuss it further, put them next to each other, sort them based on the bad value they create, and then turn things around, get into the root causes and to how a situation would look when those would be solved, so that everybody understands that the whole needs to go too, not just the parts.
Mhm.
And as I said, we've just done that uh, in actually 14 hours total in sessions. So as far as I'm concerned, let's get started with it. Yeah, and I'm fully on board. But I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into lengthy discussions anymore. We're just going around in circles there.
Mhm. No, I think you're definitely talking about where we want to go and how we want to do that. As I said, we see our position as a combination of think tank facilitator, because we don't think we're the only ones that have ideas. We want to facilitate bringing the people with ideas together. And then we've got to
So,
figure out how we influence the world to bring those solutions into being. And
No,
those are,
sorry, Bill. Don't worry about the big numbers. This is a complex problem. When things are complex, it's quite often so that a very small team can be way more effective than a big one. On the contrary,
oh,
uh,
I
yeah.
didn't want to
So let's
imply, yeah, I didn't want to imply that we're saying here that we're trying to go and get thousands of people into think tank. We just need to get the right people into the right think tank.
exactly. Now, Ashok was here, but unfortunately, it dropped off. He's actually actively pursuing something like that in the health area. But maybe there's a possibility to combine this because it's pretty much the root cause at the end of the day are likely to be pretty much the same. So if
Mhm.
the right people, just 10, 12 people would be together, that's sufficient to identify uh, most damaging one and have a foundation one can build on and don't get distracted by all hundreds of different perspectives. So at least there's a foundation. Here are hard root causes. Here are the goals we have identified. Here's a solution framework. If you have something that's better or could enhance that, fine. You can use your own solution. But at the end of the day, it's being judged by a simple question like, okay, when you decisions make the health, for example, of the organization, of the people, not just the uh, body or mental health improve, but also the organizational health, the environmental health. Will it improve or worsen? Simple intervention possibilities that don't require extensive studying, but people can make decisions on very, very quick, in minutes,
Mhm.
rather than years of analysis. It's nothing new. We did it in the 90s.
In a way, though, we're like meteorologists. We're talking about the future, and the future could take different paths. And there's likelihoods that this path or that path. We see that when a hurricane, when the European maps and the North American maps, and where's it going to go, and how much damage it's going to do, and so forth. So we have to start off by looking and seeing what are the different trajectories that are taking place in the world, where are
Yeah.
the likelihoods of possibility going? And here's where we run into one of the first challenges in that there's so much disagreement on where things, what are bad, what are risks, how big are the risks, and so forth.
Yeah. Well, to me, that's just a matter of, how shall I say, uh, for people to discuss about it, but not solving problems. When you get into root causes, yeah, like you mentioned the weather. Well, I use weather prediction as an example to show, hey, with today's practices, even supercomputers, we can predict the weather only 7 days or maximum 14 days, and that's it. End of discussion. Yeah, everybody understands that. So we don't have to uh, go about this in any more discussions. That are nice examples. But then there are other things. Hey, wait a moment. When we let go this thinking, how weather prediction is made with mathematics, lots of data by numbers. When we let go of this, hey, wait a moment. The other things that turn out to be rules, really hard rules. We can do nothing about it. When we understand those, we have one of the big sources to find a strong, reliable way forward. The other one is, again, I mentioned a couple of times today, if you understand the solvable root causes at the highest system level, which are, well, I can only argue is pretty much identified. There may be a few more, it doesn't matter, as long as we understand the main root causes and the solvable root causes and the solutions. Um, much can be solved by applying associated solutions without dictating them, but inviting people to join. If you're a traditional leader, okay, well, you're welcome. You can become the next generation leader. Do you want that? Yes, here are a couple of rules that cannot be ignored, that are dictated, so to speak, by nature. We can do nothing about it. here are root causes, learn them, learn how to go about them, learn how to make better decisions, and you will be the next generation leader who people listen to instead of turning their back to. That things possible.
Yeah.
So I would say let's stop debating it further. Let's identify the question we want to answer, and then schedule the next session perhaps, or the next couple of sessions as workshops. I'd be happy to facilitate that. The collection, collect it also, and in the background consolidate it. And with each step, we should be able to get further. And as I said, there's just one we get through. We can use it. The team decides what's relevant and what isn't. What's not relevant will be removed. What's relevant is on.
Yeah. Again, let's try to talk over the next couple of days and see about putting together of the framework for a meeting, such as you just described, that we can start off as a workshop and announce it early enough in advance that we get a good cross section, because we've got some people come in one week and then they're not there the next week, and so that we.
We need, yeah, we need a couple of people who are really knowledgeable,
Yeah.
experienced in this challenge, may have solutions already. And okay, in the other team, we had just that group of people, highly experienced with the challenge, and it just went on. I'm still so amazed by the speed by which, at the end of the day, we ended up in the first version of this solution framework.
Was that Lysinka's group?
No, definitely not.
Okay, because you mentioned that was not all in network.
Now it's a group of neurodivergent people. That's people with talents to solve complex problems. And they had gone through the experience. Yes, the solutions are there. Several of them have solutions, but they don't get through the system anymore. And they knew pretty well what the obstacles are, what the root causes could be. And all I did is pick their input, just pretty much one page per brainstorming questions, not more at the end of the day, consolidate that into something more powerful, review it with a team, make some changes, and when that's okay, you can go to the next step.
Okay,
I can show you the details next week.
Yeah, okay. I'll touch base with you here in between, and we'll set up an agenda for next week. How about the rest of you? Do you feel comfortable with that idea that we're going to try to organize a workshop where we talk specifically about the kinds of root causes to
No, we're not going to talk about them. Well, no, something is happening. We are calling to collect the obstacles, root causes that people see, solution possibilities, and work from there. We're not going to debate it. We're just picking the most impactful. That's the difference. It's powerful. Let me show you next week.
Yeah, okay.
Can I come in?
Yes, Mark Henry, please.
Yeah. So I just wanted to come in to say yes, I also concur with this, and wanted to thank you again for, first of all, volunteering to facilitate and then coordinate, because I think sometimes it is it's good to have good intentions, but when somebody comes forward and says, "Hey, I can do this," that would be good. And also maybe to request that between Bill, the number of people who've been on, and a few have been dropping off, but over time, you'll get some people with some very good ideas and contributions, and then maybe their schedules just doesn't work. But it could be good that you look up some of these from the past, and we see that they're in this workshop or workshop series, whatever it turns out to be. And then maybe you could also try to interest some of those people who have participated in your process to say, you know what, You may not be a Rotarian, and this may not be your thing, but this is a challenge. We are looking to solve some of the world's biggest problems. So if you could just come in as a guest for a few sessions, let's have your input, and then you go away. Because
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
well,
this is coming together well.
well, one of the key things in here is we need a team that at the end of the sessions can say, yes, we have an executable solution framework. So they should participate for pretty much from the beginning to the end, exceptions granted. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
no, they will come in, and I think we could even find that the types of people who will do that tend to be more the visionary, the conceptual people, and then you then need to get to find the doers. Now, from my experience, I mean, if I'm just take my own club, I probably have between me and one other. That's where the thinking is, but the others are the doers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But that's
it may
efficient.
be that
Yeah,
this we just need this small group to come together, have these
exactly.
workshops, do the conceptualization, and then now we take it to the Rotary family and to the UN and the rest, and say, guys, now let's do this. You know, we've done the thinking.
And I think again, one of the things, if I look here, and I'll just take one example that's hot right now in the UN, is this aspect of the potentiality of a post-labor society where human labor has no value anymore. And the question is, what is the goal? What should the goal be relative to that possibility? We look at the possibilities, trying to say we don't want nuclear war. What are
Yeah,
the possibilities? How do we block that? So if we're looking here and saying that the first thing we have to do is have a consensus or an agreement of what is that future that we think is good. If we don't agree where we want to get to, it's very hard to come up with a plan of how to get there. So we've got to figure out how we get the consensus of
yeah,
what we think is good. The very definition of the word good, you can get 10 people in a room, and I'm always
yeah.
amazed at how different the definition of good is. And then the second thing is that once we can agree that this is what we want or something that we don't want, then we can start to come up and say, what are concrete measures that would be able to bring about what we want or be able to avoid what we don't
Please,
want? And then we come up to the implementation of how we cause that to happen.
may I invite you to let that go, that measuring. It's as a mathematician, one of the things I learned when it's complex, which is what this is about, measuring gets enormously difficult. And that's why an alternative, I brought an example in a couple of times. But when we look where the decisions are made, where the difference between good and bad decisions are made, that's within decision making. And when we get into discussions during decision making, um, we lose the battle anyhow with complex matters. Definitely with today's people in these positions because they want to see numbers. But here the challenge is much cannot be expressed in numbers. So that's why I keep pushing these leadership questions like, okay, will our decisions increase or decrease the health of the people, of the environment, or whatever? So one doesn't have to worry about what exactly it is. It will worsen or it will improve, or maybe it will be equal. That's what the decision can be
We
made
we
based.
we have a lot of the challenges right now are black or white. If the world atmosphere becomes such
Please
that it
let
doesn't support human life, then and there's a tipping point to that.
yeah, yeah, please
Getting fifty
let
percent of what it takes to keep you alive is not a good enough.
it's the what this is about is using techniques, practices that prevent lengthy discussions, that prevent opposition, that provide new opportunities, and that very, very quick. So we don't set in detail what the goal is. The goal actually can only be found when we understand the root causes. Otherwise, if you set the goal too early, we miss certain root causes and get stuck, guaranteed. That's how things work today. But so actually, part of this approach is we identify not some high-level goals, like it would be, compare this what Kennedy said, we're going to fly to the moon, yeah? But if he had set additional goals, like we're going to the moon by using the jet engine, well, that would have been the end of it.
I agree.
Yeah, that's the trick here. So we need to avoid these kind of things that could limit the outcome. At the same time, let me put it different. We need something that is high enough to capture the most damaging root causes or the highest impact root causes and the highest impact rules or laws of nature, you name it. Uh, and and they need to be captured. But when it comes to execution, we
Yeah.
can start small. There we actually need concrete projects. So we need to have that in the back of our mind. And then when it comes, okay, we have now an executable solution framework. Let's now get it into a concrete pilot, into a complete area, whatever that could be. Then there's no reason why it
Yeah.
should not
But
work.
you said something very pertinent here. You pointed out Kennedy said, okay, we're going to go to the moon. Okay. So the equivalent, that set the goal. How we get there, he didn't say. He didn't put any
Exactly,
limits.
exactly,
So that's fine.
exactly,
We can do the same thing. But if we say that part of our goal is to eliminate human labor, if that's our goal. Okay, how you want to do that? Okay, we'll have a discussion now. How do we eliminate the need for human labor? If we decide here that we set the high level goal is to eliminate geopolitical competition. And then, but we're not going to say how. Then we have an
it's
open thing to go in all directions. So that's equivalent to what Kennedy was doing. And
well, mm,
yeah,
the other one that was an engineering challenge. There's more an engineering challenge where the exact ones. Okay, okay. I would say let's talk
yeah,
next week.
we'll talk here. We'll probably need a couple of sessions during the week. I've got a lot of doctor appointments and things like this right now because I'm it looks like I'm headed towards surgery. But the so it'll be a little bit catch as catch can. But I'll let you know a couple of times, and or if you can let me know a couple of times where we can exchange some information. We can also just if I think you've got some written materials that we can use on that. And let's plan for a session next week where we will try to go and pick the goal that
Oh, no, no,
and
no,
invite.
no, 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 the approach. We're going to get the approach. Or we may need a question, a brainstorming questions.
Okay.
That's what this workshop starts with.
Yeah.
I'm not going to accept any goal early on. We need something from which we can do an open brainstorming questions and then identify, once we have the root causes, identify specific goals for each of the root causes
So
or
you're
obstacles.
saying here we almost need to do a survey then to collect ideas on what because you're saying, okay, we're not setting the goals. But you've got people that are going and saying, "Hey, my interest is climate change," and others saying, "My interest is societal change in a post-labor economy."
Oh, wait a moment. Oh, what are the biggest obstacles standing in the way of achieving the climate goals? Preventing AI from doing bad things and so on. As long as we keep it that open, it can be for
Okay,
all these areas, we're fine.
yeah, that no, that's good. And maybe that you just said the what are the biggest obstacles to
you're achieving the SDG goals in short, plus AI, plus preventing AI damage or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay, we'll communicate. Anybody else who would like to participate in that just some discussion on the first topic area?
I have somebody.
Bill,
Yes.
Bill, I'm available if needed. You can,
Okay.
and I think I'm Eugen. I think we're in roughly the same time zone,
Yeah,
so it should be easy
yours.
for.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. So,
Somebody who would want to participate in that is Afshok. He was here
oh yes,
here
yes,
earlier. So
yes,
if you could
absolutely.
invite him as well for next
I
week's.
can definitely will include him. We talk fairly frequently. So yes. And so let's plan that then for next week. Um, just uh, to sort of wrap up what I was trying to get to today, was this thinking here, like I say, if we're sort of thinking we're like the meteorologists that are trying to project the paths of storms or the paths of negative things, uh, a lot of the discussion is very often we see in the Caribbean that there's a North American model and a European model coming. One of them typically says, oh, it's going out into the Caribbean on the west side of Florida and it's going to go upland there. And the other model says, no, it's going up on the east side and it's going to go there. So the people have to prepare for the damage of the storm is totally different. And you don't want, a lot of people, they say, oh, the odds are that this model has been wrong a couple of times, so they don't do any preparation, and then they get whacked. So the question here for us is not necessarily what the likelihood is of something taking place, but how strong is the likelihood that it will not take place? So that, in other words, it gets down to are you willing to bear the risk if the likelihood that it will not occur is very, very high, that you're more confident maybe to say, oh, that doesn't need to be our top priority. But if the likelihood is very low that it will not happen, then that becomes a more dangerous thing. If you try to go today an estimate on certain things on economies or certain things on conflicts, you'll see a wide range between the most likely and the least likely. And sometimes they're close together. And if they're both close together, but they're relatively high, that's one thing. But if one is very high and the other one is and extremely low on the same thing, you may look at that differently. So that's what I was trying to get to here is that we have to be concerned because a lot of people are saying the likelihood is that it's
Uh,
going to happen is not that high, but the likelihood that it will not happen is actually very, very uh, low, even much, much lower. So we see something that says, it's a 50% chance it's going to happen. And people say, well, it's 50% chance it won't happen. But if
well,
the chance that it won't happen is only 5%, then we have to worry about it differently.
sorry, Bill, I'd like really to invite you to let go of this level of detail for this workshop. Yeah, it's 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 not necessary. It comes in later when people want to go into the real things
I
that
think it
make.
gets into the question of opportunity cost
Well,
because when
that's
you,
not, don't worry. Well, uh, it's the problems are obvious. Yeah, so many people have debated it, and we don't get anything further. So we need to let go of what that doesn't get us through the system, and get to a fresh thinking. Like, yeah, these meteorologists, uh, that's, for example, exact linear thinking. They are simulated through computer uh, uh, programs with mathematics at the core. Yeah. And that works until the 7 days. But uh, at some point, sometimes even one day can be sufficient. 7 or 14 days, doesn't matter. A tipping point is crossed where those models cannot provide reliable outcomes. And then something very different is required.
Absolutely.
Take, yeah, a very different approach. So please let go
But
for this
what
discussion
we
of,
don't do, what we don't do in those cases here is if there's a storm projected to go up the east coast of the United States, the people in California don't spend billions of dollars protecting themselves against it.
yeah,
So
um,
that's
yeah,
the issue here of that it's very important that the people that are in the paths of these storms that they do take the proper precautions.
sure, no questions. That to me is, uh, if you get that in that level, we won't go anywhere. It's way too much to cover. It's kind of like if you take Einstein and Newton, both provided formulas, simple formulas, well, relatively simple formulas for what they found, mathematical formulas. That's comparable to the weather forecasting. But then there's Darwin. He couldn't do that. He used a very different path. Yeah. So he took patterns instead and built the evidence through discussions, through the porters, uh, and became the person he's known for. Yeah. And that last part we have pretty much lost in decision making. Every decision maker wants to have numbers or a best practice or whatever that has a flag of being trusted, while it's only trusted for situations where the mathematics, the numbers work. Yeah, but these situations are so different. As soon as we get these things that are based on exact linear practices in, then it doesn't work anymore. Then it fails because it's complex. They cannot provide reliable outcomes. So let's take a step back, uh, and that's an invitation to every participant. Let's take a step back from the practices dominating today's decision making, get to deeper level where we really can get to the core of something that blocks things and get that opened, get that changed, get people applying that. And yes, much of that isn't new. We did it when we didn't have computers. We applied those practices. If you go back into the old days, practice uh, to apply, let's call it the Darwin approach using patterns, was called common business sense and intuition. We didn't have the data, but this brain here is able to find information our modern tools, computers cannot find. Even the computers, although they're coming closer to it with AI, they still are not at the level at the human brain. And we can use this potential.
We're going to have
So
to take
why don't we go into next session?
yeah,
I'll call it then a day for today. I think if that is our conclusion, then we have
yeah.
made great progress from my perspective. And I'd like to go into doing mode.
Yeah. I think here I agree that I think this was very good in a practical sense, and we will coordinate here over the next few days so that we have some time to get out the invitation to some of the broader audience because
Yeah,
problem we
it
have
was,
here is too often the week runs out and by the time I can get the invitations out, people already have other things scheduled and things like that that are causing problems. So I will be in
let,
touch with you.
let's put it that way. I have room for uh, uh, one workshop approach.
Mhm.
It should be no more than 12 people. Yeah. So
We
12.
may want to do this again. Um, separate from the standard Saturday session. We want to
Yeah,
make a special session for this,
yeah, that
and
makes sense.
do
Good.
that. So let's talk to plan that, and we will contact the others that were on this call to let you know this is what we're doing. So if you have interest in that, and especially Mark Henry, I definitely want your input, and we'll talk to Ashok. Put together a small group and of those kinds of people. I'm thinking of a couple of other people in our club that have been very visionary in their thinking as well. And I think I'm excited about this perspective of
Yeah,
this,
me
and I'm
too.
also going to pass to you the paper that I was working on that has the initiatives that we have both in the engagement of achieving the engagement of the hundreds of millions, not in thought exercise, but in doing that they actually recognize their power to do uh, by being able to motivate huge numbers of people to actually become participants in doing
Yeah,
and also in the education field, where we're able to see in almost all of the researchers in the education field have become very basically achieve consensus is what's needed, but the education industry um, is has been unable to do the things that are needed to be able to make the changes because the practice is so ingrained that it requires a very dramatic change on the whole way education is looked at. And that's very difficult, even though the individual educators will pretty much all agree that that's what's needed. So,
yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't want to exclude people, but it's just if you do it in a very small group, it's so much easier.
yeah.
But then afterwards, that is not something that's hard, and you have to pick like it is done today. You're bound to be free to use what's relevant for the situation at hand and to use own solutions as long as you can get over this tipping point where the project you want to run becomes executable, scalable, and durable at the large level. That's that's a very simple check. So giving a lot of freedom and yet moving people, or sorry, not moving, but helping me people to find a common path
Mhm.
among each other's contributions complement each other.
By the way, I saw this thing here. This from what we were doing in the late teens, 2020 teens. We had established this thing called Rotary Youth for a Better World. Actually, they established it, and but we ended up being the promoters. And so this is Sample. This is an example where we brought interact clubs from an entire district together, and they brainstormed major world problems. Um, this got to the point where we have here the youth envoy to the Secretary General of the United Nations
Mm.
meeting with representatives
Yeah,
of
well,
our
that
group.
are exactly the kind of things we that could then, in following steps, be perfectly positioned to make things grow exponentially.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and so we had to stop this at the time. This shows the number of our youth doing a TV show.
Mm.
So it's amazing here if you dare to go out. This is showing in the General Assembly at the United Nations. Was that General Assembly? Yeah, I think that. No, that's in one of the meeting rooms. But we've had as many as 2,700
Uh,
youth from 130
Bill,
countries. Yes.
yeah, two proposals I have. One, I think it's good that we've gotten consensus on getting this workshop, and I fully agree with Jürgen's model of limit the number, but have the right people in the room,
Right.
because we will get to decision quickly, but we have enough a variety of opinions so that we won't be, closed-minded. But then, second, I see space for two other special club meetings. One, I would think it would be good that we give Eugen space to also describe the process that you've gone through because you are solving a different issue. It would be good
Yeah,
if you could just tell us about it
yeah,
and the process, just for the benefit, not only for what we're trying to do, but even in our own clubs and companies. This could be methodology and processes that would be helpful. And then the other would be for Bill, the work that was done that was interrupted by COVID-19. This work with the interactors. If it could all be collated and we have just one presentation and we get the whole of it, because I think that would also be good. We may choose to even delay these to say, well, let's first get through the workshop. Let's start building momentum. I believe that the group will grow, and then at a certain point, we say, okay, good. Now let's set these as examples or best practices that others could pick on to grow our group, but also to grow their clubs and their work,
Yeah.
whatever they're up to. So
Mark
I don't know
Henry,
what I've put two of you in the hairs. So maybe both of you can comment on whether you think
yeah.
it's a smart idea or it's something that should be ditched immediately.
I think, Mark Henry, what you're describing is we were heading, again, COVID interrupted a lot of things. But one of the things we were working on, it was creating committees. We Rotary clubs very often have committees for various purposes. And we were looking to create two categories of committees. One was around subject areas, if we could sort of call them areas of focus equivalent in Rotary, where they dealt with certain kinds of problems. And the other one was sort of admin, where we had a committee for communication and committees for admin things and things like that within the group. And
oh,
so that we would love to be able to get that going again. We lost 50% of our membership literally overnight when our district had to merge with another district back around 2019. Up until that point, we had more than 50% of our club were under the age of 30. But most of them were from developing countries. And we had in our old district, we had a policy that if you were under 30 and if the club did not add on any club related dues, you didn't have to pay district dues. So that the cost for those under 30 to be a member was very low. When after the merger, the new district said, no, 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 everybody's got to pay full price. And so we suggested all of those under 30 that where it would be a hardship, that they withdraw from being formal members of the club and that we would try to organize something for them going on. And then COVID hit right after that. And of course, that disrupted a lot of things. But we definitely want to get back because it was amazing that the young people were the ones that really, I think, came in with the out of the box ideas, came in and really said, why not? And so this, if we can get back to where we have committees, so that a number of things can be going on in parallel under their own agenda. Because when we only have one focal point, then the problem is that there's not enough variety in what we're doing, and we're not doing enough things in parallel. So hopefully we'll get back to that. But I'm excited here to look and see. Let's get a couple of other ideas on the table and try some stuff out because in the end of the day, time is passing, and it's not like we have unlimited time. This is the number one concern, I think, and the reason why we rate AI so high is because the speed at which things are going there may leave us with very little time to react and make sure they're dealt with in an orderly fashion. Okay, but I
I
think
think,
again, do you want to say anything last? And
yeah,
otherwise, I think we
Mark
can
had
wrap up.
also a question towards me about the workshop approach. Actually, we have just approved that the workshop or that the work document will be public. It has different levels to it, making it very easy down to going into the details like concrete root causes, goals identified. So all of this acting as a visual something that has been done to the point where a solution framework has been created. Um, and you can take things out of them if you like. You don't have to. You can just use the same root causes if you think they apply for your for the concrete challenge we're going about. The decision is with a team. Yeah. So that would then shorten things what others have done already, so we don't
Mhm.
have to reinvent the wheel.
Any materials you can send as to um,
It's let me put it that way. I'm that far. We are that far that the work document is okay for going public, but we need to make it a little bit shorter and create a structure that's more appealing to the others by keeping the content, so people can use uh, what's available, what's identified right away. Yeah,
mhm.
no need uh, to read other books or something should be rather clear as to what root causes are and what solutions could be without telling exactly what it needs to be. That's then part of follow
Mhm.
up.
Have you run across that on many of the issues, the root cause is human nature?
Actually, the argument is the problems are man-made. It's
Yeah,
all, yeah,
but
it's
man-made because of the of human instinct and human nature.
well, instinct can be
It
good.
may be interesting because then if we have to define human nature, then aren't we going to go into formation, the environment, because different environments will lead to different human nature when the person grows
Mm,
up.
mm.
So it
Yeah,
it
Absolutely.
it 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 adds complexity.
Well, what that does, though, Mark Henry, is it maybe points to certain solutions, like what we see here in the United States and in Germany. In the United States, that we have 40% of our 10-year-olds can't read effectively. Germany, it's 25%. The number one cause that they say is happening between birth and the start of kindergarten, that 4 to 5 year period, that the difference between the way families do the upbringing, or Erziehung in German, the upbringing versus learning or education or Bildung, that Erziehungs part, that upbringing part, is has become so fragmented, so that we see that in certain cultural groups, certain poverty levels, socioeconomic groups, the upbringing is missing or is very different. And that causes that when you get to the education side of it, that those children are almost unable to um, to continue with the education side. So you're right, the formation of values and the human nature aspect, character, and so forth. A lot of that gets baked in those first couple of years, and if it doesn't, that's what leads to the human nature aspects that we see. If you're brought up in a family where everybody, you have to fight if you want food, from the earliest life on, that you realize if you don't fight, you don't get. And then that continues in that person's life, that they feel that every single other person out there is a threat that they have to deal with. We psychologists know that exists, that kind of impact from upbringing. So yeah, but the thing about it is, if that's there and that exists, it has to be dealt with. Anyway, so um, I think here we've sort of we've hit a good point to stop, and I still have time to switch over to that other meeting. And so again, I thank you and Mark Henry for uh, providing us with some concrete vision of how can we move from the general discussion level into the level of moving forward, because we've said, and I know one of the other core people in the club who very often is looking to say, okay, our challenge has been that how do we get action? Rotary has this idea of people of action, but very often it's action without thinking, or it's only action. People are saying, "Hey, I'm ready to help. I'm not ready to think about what the problems are, but if you need somebody to serve food or go clean up the beach, I can help." Uh, the but what we're looking at is saying if we put out an idea for a project, and we say, "Okay, how do we implement that? If we need to cause certain people to do things or cause certain things to happen, we want to get all the people on our group here to become contributors to ideas on how we make those things happen. How do we cause those things? This gets back to that 14-year-old boy who came up and said, "Hey, if you want something to happen or somebody to do something, if you don't cause it to happen, that's wishful thinking. That's the definition of wishful thinking." And so we want to get beyond the wishful thinking. So we have to be able to get a lot of brains coming up with ideas on how do we cause the things that we want to happen to happen. And that in some cases is by going and figuring out how do we motivate people to voluntarily do things. In some cases, it may be that it's so important for the world that we deem it so important. We may be talking about how do we force people to do things. That is sometimes necessary. If somebody's out there going to rob the bank, how do we force them to give up or not do that? So at any rate, we will get into more of that next week, and we'll do some planning on it before the week so we can get information out beforehand. So
Okay.
yes, again,
Yeah, sounds to me that was a very productive meeting. I
yes.
can follow up on things I'm lagging behind now.
Yeah, and please, again, let's start off. Send me whatever ideas you're thinking
Uh,
about for
let's
this.
let's what we can do is next week I'll show you the Word document
Yep.
that should guide through what's concrete involved
Mhm.
and how we could get from today's this situation to where everybody wants to go to, I believe.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. And I thank everyone for hanging in there. And I think here, wow, this is going to be the shortest meeting I think we've ever had. So that's a good sign. And thank you again. And until next time, bye now.
See you. Bye.
See
Thanks.
you.